Hey, fellow traveler. Welcome to the Third Eye Awakening podcast, a show where we talk all about spiritual and psychic awakening, magic, the shift from 3D to 5D, star seeds, ascension, multiple timelines, multiple dimensions, the universe, the multiverse, the Akashic records, all the good things. I am your host, Amy Belair, and I'm so glad to have you here with me today. Okay, let's do this. I just finished recording this beautiful conversation, which you are about to hear with a sister priestess and returning guest, Cara Busacker. She is such a beautiful, powerful, intuitive movement, shadow alchemy, astrology, warrior, goddess, fairy, priestess, witch, and my words, not hers. And I'm just really excited to share this conversation with you because we went to such beautiful places that I wasn't anticipating. Cara shares about the edges that she has leaned into on this journey of transformation and personal activation in a way that I appreciate so much, because I know from the outside, especially if you are kind of new on your journey of, spiritual awakening, but more importantly, new on your journey of stepping into the fullness and the power that you are, it can seem really kind of intense and scary to consider joining different programs and investing in ourselves and leaning into our edges and doing the work. And Cara is such a beautiful example of what can happen when you just show up for it and you do it. She leaned into the financial edge of investing in the Priestess Portal and in the Akashic Apprenticeship. But she also leaned into the edge of vulnerably sharing her shadow stuff so that it could get seen and witnessed and alchemized. And she leaned into the edge of really claiming the true parts of herself that she's always known about, but that, have seemed unacceptable to, regular society, I guess, like those magical parts. And claiming things for herself that can sound totally fantastical, but she claims them powerfully anyway. And I gotta say, it's so powerful to hear her claim those things that even for me, when I hear that, it often activates me into being able to see a new aspect of myself and then being able to claim that. For me, it's just really beautiful. Which, P.S., if you are not in some kind of community that is close and personal within which you can share these aspects of yourself, please just get in one already, because it just makes such a difference. It makes such a difference to have a place to share these things, especially since a lot of us, we're the only, air quotes, awake ones within our real life relationships. And we do need to go have conversations that are open and honest with people where we can allow ourselves to be fully seen. There's more of you than you're even aware of, and it doesn't start to come out until you start talking and listening to others talk. The other thing that is so exciting and timely about this conversation is that I recently started to receive more information for the priestess. So anybody who carries the priestess archetype, it's the information is about 2 subtypes of priestesses that is coming forward and is ready to be activated and fully embodied so that we can step into our role in the energies of 2023 and beyond. And so I'm holding a live channeling event on Friday, February 10th, to talk about these 2 priestess types, which are the priestess of the void and the priestess of the light. And I'm holding it over Zoom rather than holding it on social media. It just feels really important that everybody who hears it signs up for it. Doesn't just like happen to watch it because it happens to be on, but rather you opt in. There's something really sacred and precious about this information. So it is a free event. There's no cost to you apart from just the time that you invest. All you need to do is sign up for it, and then you get the Zoom link and the date and time. And if you're able to join live, amazing. And if you're not, then you will have 72 hours to enjoy the replay. And so if you want to receive these new codes and these new activations, then sign up. The link will be in the show notes. It's also in my bio on Instagram. It's probably on my website. So come receive, Priestess. There's new information that is awaiting you. Otherwise, I just want to plug Cara. If you feel like you're called to work with her, then please do. She is just so genuine and so magical. And she carries more transformational magic than I think she even realizes yet. Her magic is so special because she can take you deep into the dark, shadowy places without it feeling heavy and painful. Her magic is very sparkly and light, and her laughter is so infectious. But she does not bypass the dark things that need to get seen. So it's like you get a lot of shadow cleared out and transmuted just by the default of being in her presence. And at the same time, you get sprinkled with like magic fairy dust, and your magicness gets activated. I don't know how else to put it. I do articulate it more eloquently several times during the episode, but I just want to be very clear that if you feel called to work with Cara, then please do reach out to her. And if you feel called to work with me, if you listen to, the transformation she's experienced on her journey, part of which was walked with me, and you're like, oh, I am ready to get me some of that experience, then please reach out to me. I'm at a place where I'm really ready to own that I have a gift for birthing new timelines and creating new realities. I have an ability to basically take you like from wherever you are at the beginning of our point of working together through the process of being in my energy field. A new timeline gets created and you get calibrated to it so that on the other side of us working together, you are not only like a different version of yourself, but you are literally in a different timeline and experiencing a different reality. I see your magic and I activate it and articulate it to you. And I also see your blocks and your blind spots with crystal clarity through your Akashic records. And through your holographic field, we work through them, we dissolve them, we repattern and recode you so that you are you become a representation of your original blueprint, the template that you were meant to be. I'm here for the people who are ready to step into their power and who know that they did not incarnate for no reason. Like you did not just come to just like float on the lazy river and watch the world go by. Some people are here for that reason, and that's amazing. But I just don't really hold the codes for those people. I hold the codes for people who know that you are here for a frigging reason and you are ready to just get into it, figure it out, and start doing it. So if you feel called to work with me, then reach out to me. Email is best, amy@thenorthstarguidance.com. And I so look forward to connecting with you. I hope I get to see a whole bunch of you in the Priestess channeling event for the Priestess of the Void, the Priestess of the Light. And otherwise, please enjoy this amazing conversation with Cara Busacker. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Third Eye Awakening. Today I'm so excited to have with me a fellow priestess sister, a powerful intuitive and movement guide, an astrologer, coach, and mentor, the very magical Cara Busacker. And we're going to talk to you today about the shift in energies that we're both feeling since January. We've kind of like had a couple very abbreviated conversations privately about this shift, but we've never come together yet. So you're going to hear it live and in real time, really sort of comparing notes and describing the way that we are both experiencing this individually, because there are a lot of similarities, but I come at it from sort of the nebulous Akashic field, and Cara comes at it from the astrological field, and then we both have other things sprinkled and woven in there as well. So I think it's going to be some exciting magic. Thank you, Cara, for being here. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Amy. I always just like relish in any time I get to talk to you. It's amazing. And yeah, I know that like anytime that we start picking each other's brains, it just goes so many directions and there's endless possibilities of things to chat about. So I'm really happy to be here too.
Yeah, totally. I agree. Like when we do touch base with each other and sort of like describe what we're feeling and compare notes, so to speak, it always produces this like synergistic magic that like expands both of our fields of consciousness further. So I think this is going
Yes.
to be juicy. So, okay, let's get started by maybe before we get into the energies of January, do you want to just sort of describe a little bit to the listeners um, more about who you are, where you are, what you do, and sort of like the journey that has brought you here to this point where you're actually starting to feel, as you said to me before we hit record, like you're starting to see the results of everything that you have been working towards.
Yeah. Well, first off, I want to say happy full moon in Leo. It's pretty like cool that we get to have this conversation today on the full moon. And so I also, it's pretty like significant for me. I have a birthday tomorrow. So yeah, so and this full moon is awesome just individually for me because we're in Aquarius season and I always knew when I was younger, like I was kind of into astrology just to the place where I knew a lot about like my sun sign. I remember my mom gave me this like cool astrology book when I was young, and I just like I looked at that thing and just studied it inside and out for years and years and years. It was like one of my favorite things. So I always knew a lot about Aquarius energy, which of course, you know, when you are into astrology and you start like finding out all these things, it always made sense to me. But then later in life, I never got a full chart reading, actually until about maybe like within the last 5 years. I really took a deep dive into my full birth chart and found out that I was a Leo moon and a Leo rising. So that explains so much more about like who I was and and then just the full birth chart aspect itself. But today's pretty significant because with the full moon in any sign is always the opposite sign on the zodiac. So we're the Aquarius, or the sun is in the sign of Aquarius, and then the full moon is exact opposite point and it is in the sign of Leo. So it's kind of like encapsulates everything that I am today. Like we've got the full moon in Leo in the sun in Aquarius. So I'm stoked on that one. But to go back into like as a child, super into astrology, super into just magical things. My imagination was so wild. And I always knew that there was so much more to this life than what we all like, what meets the eye or what we all describe as just like this programmed life. Um, and as I grew up, it felt like, you know, I would kind of pop in and out of um, believing more like the stuff that I imagined, but believing that there was much more magic than what we are told to believe in, you know. And as you get older, as you start to go through puberty, as you start to become a teenager, a lot of that magic starts to get squashed. And especially, you know, all I can say is, as being a woman, like going through in the 90s and 2000s, like growing up in that time frame, there was so much programming on what it meant to be a woman. And a lot of that was like, you can't be crazy. You can't be like imaginative and magical and witchy and wild, because you will be ostracized. You know, you will be like the crazy one in the bunch. And anytime that I would show that side of myself, I would feel the like criticism. And it took me to this place where I kind of went dark for a while. You know, there was periods of depression. I would put myself in situations where I just didn't feel like I could truly be myself. And I think, you know, I know your story, and I know a lot of the other like priestess women that we've been in, you know, been in groups and in connection with, have these similar stories. It wasn't until really when I met my husband, and he really was like a very safe person to open up to about some of my thoughts and theories about the world, about my more magical side, that I realized that it started to become safe to talk more about the things that had always been brewing in my head. um and you know, we are divorced, and we're separated now, but he's the father of my child, and I am forever grateful that he was like a very, very safe person to open me up to all the things that were kind of hidden and under the surface, that I was too afraid to let people know that this was really what I was going on in this head of mine. And so that was in, you know, about my mid 20s. I then married him, and we had a child. And motherhood, I just remember the day my daughter was born. We named her Lena, and which means bringer of light. And that was the like, I think I would say that was like the moment that I truly, like, my eyes opened, and I was reborn with the birth of my child into like this spiritual being that I am now. It was like the very opening of my eyes that there's so much more to this thing that humans call life on this planet Earth, wherever we are, this realm we're in. And then from there, from being a mother, my daughter's now, she's going to be 11 in the spring. Through that journey of motherhood, and then with each consecutive year that she grew, I feel like I have become more and more awake to, again, what are we calling this thing? Life, this realm. It's just expanded exponentially, like so much. And then I will have to attribute, I know we talked about this the last time I was on the podcast, to when the pandemic started. And I actually think of the pandemic in a way as like a gift to me, because I was able to slow down, and I was able to live outside of the day-to-day world of hustle and bustle, and really start to be with my thoughts, be with my emotions, be with like who I was, without the distractions of a world that we have all been living in, that really distracts you from finding who you are, truly are, and your soul, and your like the deepness that we are as humans. And in that pandemic time, I found the priestess codes. And that was just an amazing bright. I mean, I know I call you like a bright star, the North Star, but like you and Amron and all the women I found in there, like, oh, it was so amazing. It was like a present. I opened up a present that just exploded my world. And from there, gosh, and that was what? I mean, I think that was that 2 or 3 years ago? I can't even, time is so crazy.
Yeah,
Was
I
that
think it was
2?
almost 2 years ago in 2021. In like, I think we started in April. I think it was in the
Yes.
spring. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I remember, actually, before the priestess codes. It was on my birthday. So it's again synchronistic that I'm talking today. On my birthday, I took a trip to this cabin on the river up here in the Pacific Northwest. And it's actually, I'm going tomorrow again to this area. It's like such a magical area. And I did partake in some medicine, some magic mushrooms with a couple of my friends. And I had a magical, like crazy experience the night of my birthday. The next morning, it was definitely a medicine journey. The next morning, I woke up and there was this little hot tub on the deck of the cabin, and I was taking a soak, and like 3 or 4 bald eagles like flew around me and did a dance, and I was just like, okay, like this is something that is, I don't even really have the words, like this is something new I'm embarking on. I knew like a new stage or a new journey in my life, and was so much more open to this spiritual realm. And then a couple months later is when I joined the priestess codes. And from there, things just accelerated so quickly. I mean, it was like a train ride to like, whew, like fast track into a whole new realm, you know? Let's see. I met amazing women, you being one of them that I've collaborated with. That's how I met Christina Luna, who like fast tracked me into so much knowledge about astrology, which now I read charts. I use astrology as like a map or a guide or a reference point language to talk about the energies that I've been feeling my whole life, but didn't have any reference how to describe them or explain what I was feeling. And that's been an amazing like language kind of to use. I've always been in movement. I was a ballet dancer. I teach Pilates and yoga. But now with the spiritual component of like rebirthing myself into what I now call just like magical thinking, like spirituality. I've kind of combined all that and honed in onto my intuitive gifts. And so it's hard to always like kind of describe like what I do or who I am. But I think anybody who now is around me and has seen this transformation of who I've become over the past years just says that like I'm magical.
Yeah. Magical.
I'm magical, and sometimes English words are hard because they don't really encapsulate all that I am. But I think that's a good description. I work with a lot of energy and movement, and I just love working with people in general. I'm fascinated by people and their stories. And then my main thing in what, like, if you go to my website and you go to my Instagram or my Facebook and you kind of see the stuff that I post, and I try to take people on a journey back to themselves. And so I know everyone is like so unique and so individual. And I love to just take like each person's individual gifts and blueprint and like hone in and let them be the guide to themselves to like really enjoy like who they are, truly are, without all the like stuff around us that is telling us who we should be. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Totally.
like strip all that down. I also like to make people feel really comfortable in this process, and really learn to like love the uniqueness that we all are. And then with that, like I talk about, it really kind of comes back into this like Leo moon, Aquarius sun. It's like the Leo part is like the unique individual, like how we all are born, like with these most beautiful like snowflake blueprint images that are never alike. Every single one is different. But together, the Aquarius aspect of like the collective consciousness, together it like weaves this beautiful, beautiful snowstorm that we are in, and like I see it like a snow globe. So that's like a little imagery for you. But I hope that makes sense. Sometimes when I talk, it just feels like a word vomit, and hopefully that makes sense to you all.
Yeah, that is literally how I feel too. When I kind of like get to the end of my point, I'm like, I wonder if I just barfed a bunch of words on everyone that,
Yeah,
like wasn't cohesive.
exactly.
I understood everything that you were saying. And I also want to reflect too that one of the things that I think like one of your unique, I mean, you have many magical traits, but one that I would love to highlight is you're an amazing shame and shadow alchemist without necessarily like focusing on that in particular. But you have this
Right.
incredible willingness to be so like you're willing to go first in your authenticity and your vulnerability in a way that, as you said, you like to make people feel comfortable, but it's like, I just want to really put my finger right on it and speak to it that
Mm,
you are so willing to invite the I don't know if it's everybody, like it doesn't have to be everybody, but the people that you're here for, you're willing to invite them in and show them behind the scenes of the actual person that you are, not the like the shiny package. You know what I mean? Like you let
yeah.
people see the whole spectrum. So the pretty tied up in a bow, I've moved through this, I've integrated it, but also the like I'm in the middle of it and it feels like a gigantic clusterfuck of a mess right now, kind of like all the things. And that in and of itself, without necessarily focusing on like any specific shadow work processes, I feel like that is a huge alchemizer. You release the charge around like the shame charge around like the ideas of how we think we need to be in order to be sort of like good enough and acceptable and all that.
Ah, thank you. That's a huge compliment because it is something that I've I didn't really realize that in myself, but one thing that has come to me, especially as you were talking about at the beginning, what has come to me over the past month, I know we're only at the very beginning of February, but January was pretty transformative for me, is realizing that to be like that, to be like unabashedly and yourself and strip away those layers of like, oh wow, like what are people going to think of this? I think it comes naturally, but I also realize that it takes a lot of courage, and
Oh, yeah.
that's one thing that I actually I always knew I was brave, but I finally claimed it in January. And I think that is like been super big, is like, oh, like I always have felt like an archetype of a warrior,
Mhm.
of somebody who has gone into battle has courage and bravery. But to claim that this past month, and it's a bravery and a courage. Yeah, I can use the archetype of the battle of like a warrior or battle, but like it's much deeper than that. It's like it's almost like I feel like now I know why I'm here on earth, is because of that quality.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is like I've had the benefit of having been in like, intimate groups with you and intimate one-to-one conversations. So I also have gotten to witness that it like even though it does come naturally, you're totally right. And I'm really glad that you said that, that it is an edge. Like you are consciously choosing to be brave and sort of like bear it all. And I first saw this with real clarity in when we were in the Akashic apprenticeship together last year, and Heather was in it too, and she would call it like, we're bringing these things to the altar of our sisterhood and our
Hmm.
priestesshood. And it was really beautiful just to watch the things that you would come and place as an offering on this altar of our group connection, and be like, this is me, this is my heart, these are the
Hmm.
parts of me that have my shit together, and these are the parts of me that feel like a hot mess and that I am
Hmm.
not proud of per se. but I accept them and I'm sharing them with you. And it was just so beautiful to witness, and very, very, as I said, like alchemizing and liberating for me as well, even in the person who was like holding the container, to be like, woo, it's so like, first of all, what an honor that you would share that with us. And also, what a powerful effect. Like, you weren't doing it to shadow alchemize all of us, but that was the effect it was creating. And it was just really neat also to see the way that, or to have it reinforced that, like, man, we're those of us who are here intentionally, even if we're in process and we feel like we're not all the way integrated, we're not all the way there, we don't have our, you know, we don't necessarily have a business yet, we don't know what our offerings are, we don't know what our soul purpose is per se, our willingness to just show up and be here is like, it's so powerful in and of itself.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think you're right. I think organically, being in your apprenticeship group and then like forming such close bonds with the sisterhood of women that I met through Priestess Codes and I met through being in your apprenticeship group, I think naturally and organically, we did so much shadow work together and we continue to do it. And it's not like we signed up for a course, it's not like we
Totally.
signed up and we're like, oh, I'm going to do the shadow work now. Here's the process I'm going to go through. But what I realized is, over the past couple years, and it's been hard, like there's no joke. It was fucking rough. There
Mhm.
was like some really dark, dark moments. And when we say dark night of the soul, I'm talking like months of dark night of the soul,
Mhm.
and I know that, but like I wasn't per se necessarily I didn't seek out to do like shadow work. It just kind of that's what happened.
Mhm.
And so that's cool. Like, and I will have to say, like, being in the group of women where you get to place things on the altar and be completely yourself and know that, I think that's one of the most beautiful things that happened with you and with the other ladies, is that we reframed and went back to the original blueprint of sisterhood. I
Mhm.
mean, it's been so bastardized and so like, whatever the word is for like these women's relationships, and like, it's like I said, we didn't like intentionally set out to do it, it just happened.
Yeah.
And so by having that space where you can show up no matter what and say anything, like literally anything, and know that you're not going to be like, nothing's going to happen. Like you're going to wake up the next morning and everyone's going to be like, okay, cool, you said it.
Yes, exactly. Like, well, something is going to happen, but the scary things aren't going to happen. You're not going to be rejected. You're not going to be judged. Like your
Right.
sisters aren't going to turn around and be like, "Oh my God, she can't be one of us anymore." It was so receptive and loving, so that, yeah, when we would bring these like, oh God, just things that were so hard to say, and bring them there and
Mm-hmm.
speak them out loud,
Mm-hmm.
afterward, at least for me, I never felt, because I did that too. Like I was like, whoa, it was an edge for me. So I was like, is this even how you lead a container? I don't know, but it feels like what it's
Right.
supposed to do, what we're supposed to do together. And I am a Scorpio sun, so I get overshare hangovers. And so when I share things, especially in a group, it doesn't so much happen for my podcast, but in a group where I'm going to, I don't know, I have relationships with the people, I guess. Whereas on the podcast, I just put it
Yeah.
out there. And then if I don't want to listen to it ever again, I don't. And I'm just like,
Right.
plan and whatever,
Right.
it's out in the world. But in a group where I kind of like, I'm gonna receive a reaction, and I also care about, these relationships, then I get an overshare hangover, and I feel like, oh God, I said too much. I revealed all my cards. Like, it's just this like vulnerable, raw feeling. And in our
Yes.
both in the priestess portal and in our Akashic apprenticeship group, I never had that feeling. And it was so beautiful to just be like, oh, I'm going to say something that feels really vulnerable. And then after I'm done, I'm going to have the freedom to forget about it because I know my sisters are cool. Like, I just know that we
Yeah.
love each other, and that's where it's at.
Yeah. Gosh. Yeah. It's really an amazing thing. And so just to plug your priestess, your priestess portal stuff. I mean, it really truly did change my life, change the way that I relate to people, and to just open that up, to have these women that like I said, like I've always had a lot of friends. I've always had a lot of like really good girlfriends, but this was took it to another level. It really did. It took it to like a whole nother level of how women should be, how we should feel around each other. Like so supportive and so like loved, unconditionally loved. It goes back to like motherhood, child wounds, sisterhood wounds, like being in containers like that is just so healing. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And I think, before we move into, like, I'm dying to hear about everything you've been experiencing in January, but I do just want to say, like, your willingness to, when the time was right for you, of course, right? Like, there's no need to do this prematurely before anybody's ready for it, but your willingness to basically enter those containers and invest in yourself, I think
Mhm.
I think it's an important catalyst. And so I just want to highlight that you, because I remember you telling me that it was like an edge when you went for it.
Mhm.
And um
Totally.
but I remember it was the same thing for me in art school. Like, I inherently was an artist, always drawing my whole life, drawing, painting, and I was naturally gifted as an artist. Like, I understood color theory inherently, could make great compositions, pretty good at like sort of photorealism, being able to draw what I see and people be like, oh, that's a beautiful face, or that's a beautiful tree, or whatever.
Yeah.
But when I applied for art school, it was because I knew I had hit my own sort of like glass ceiling of how far I could take it on my own. And I knew I needed to be like in a different environment and surrounded by other artistic people, and like basically placing it on the front burner is what it felt like. Like, I was like, okay, I'm
Mhm.
prioritizing this. It's not a hobby right now in this part of my life. It is what I'm doing. And I'm going to show up for my assignments and show up for class and whatever. And then, of course, that catapulted my artistic expression like exponentially. And I feel like it's the same way when we're ready to invest in ourselves in whatever capacity and join these containers. It's like for you, you were like, I'm an astrological, magical, intuitive movement specialist, like priestess witch. And I'm celebrating it and prioritizing it now at this time of my life. We'll see where it goes. I have no idea, but this is just what I'm doing right now. And so I'm sure that's what
Yeah.
sort of laid the foundation for everything that you have experienced in January, which I would love to hear about.
Yes. Yeah. Totally. It's just so interesting because, I think of course we're programmed, which is so hard to get out of, is this linear thinking of, after you do the work, you're going to see the result,
Mhm.
right? And like you put in, you put in, you put in, now where's the tangible result? So over the past couple years, like you said, I invested in myself. Not only was it just like monetarily, but a lot of time and energy I
Yeah.
invested in like getting to these deeper truths of who I am. And like I said, sometimes it was intentional to like do shadow work and to do like to really dig deep into some of these like wounds and the shit that was holding me back from just personal goals and personal things that I wanted to do. But as I opened myself up to the process, a lot of it was surrendering, and then for about 2 years from the time I joined the Priestess Codes on, it'll be 2 years this spring. I would come to these breakthroughs, but then I would get setbacks again. And it felt, though, like, I think because I am an empath and I really do like read the energy of what's happening. That's what a lot of my Aquarius stuff is. I really read collective energy, and it affects me a lot. So what we've been going through over the past couple years, me individually, my Leo, my collectively, my Aquarius stuff, it was so much turmoil. And even though I was being intentional about like working through it and figuring it out and coming to terms with how I was dealing with like this up and down roller coaster of what we've been dealing with just in humanity and life, I always never quite felt like I would like come up for air in a storm. If I can make an image of it, I would come up for air in this like ocean storm, and I would breathe for a while, and maybe the sun would come out, and I'd be like, okay, I made it through that one. But I never felt like I actually got on land and was like laying on the sand and was like, I made it. It kind of felt like this up and down, up and down, up and down. And something happened, and I can't really still even place my finger on it, but something major happened in January where I feel like I made it onto the shore. And now I'm like, oh, I crossed that ocean, Yeah. And now it's a new terrain. And it's like, I've made it to the shore of a maybe new terrain, new island, wherever I'm at that I've never been at before. And it's fucking exhilarating.
Oh my God, that's so good. Like that analogy is so good because you're exactly right. Like there's this triumph of being like, I crossed the ocean. I'm on the sand. And we have to revel in that moment of feeling terra firma, beneath us and like, oh, I did it. And then also realizing like it's a new terrain. Like the journey's not over.
Like, I've never been here. I've never been here before. And so it's also like, oh, okay. So all of that I went through, and when there was times where I'm like, why would I ever have chosen to go through this? It makes sense now why we did it. Because
so
I'm like,
tell me about it. Tell me like what reaching the shore feels like for you, and what like has solidified in your worldview and your understanding of yourself within this whole grand schema.
It's really, I always knew it cognitively, like that that I could create my own reality, that that this world that we are in, this realm, I have a hard time saying what we're in, but you know what I'm saying, is our own making, like the Matrix, the Patrix, it's false. I knew that cognitively, but I had to get through all the barriers, like that I never fully encapsulated it or felt it truly deep down in my heart. Like there was still victim stuff. There was still like, yes, I know this. I know I can create my reality. But there was still stuff, obviously, that was still keeping me from truly embodying that. And like I said, I would get glimpses of it, like, oh, okay, yes. But then there was always these setbacks because I don't think I truly believed it deep down in my heart. And whatever happened, like, I really don't even know what happened. It may have been like the journey I've been through and the work I've been doing. But I remember it was like January 2nd, I woke up and I was like, oh, I embodied it. I was like, I can do whatever the fuck I want. Like this is all, it's manageable, but like it's all within my grasp. Like I can do this. And it's like all that stuff just like melted away. And it feels kind of weird because that stuff was so real. like even a week before that. And it was so dense and so dark. And it felt like, as much as I believed like we could be our own creators of reality, there was still something that was there that was like, nope, nope, you can't. Nope, you can't. Like there were still those inklings. And then it's like I woke up and it was like a whole new terrain where I'm like, yeah, that's gone. Does that make sense?
Yes. And you know what is so crazy is that I had the exact same experience, Cara, the exact same experience, of course, through my own lens, but where literally for me, it was Wednesday, January 4th. I woke up and it was gone. The storm was over. And it was a storm that crashed me around. I would say it was as dark and painful as my breakup with my oldest child's father and Killian's death, but nothing outside of me was happening. Do you know what I mean? So it was like, it was different because it was all internal this time, but I felt equally intense, like just ripped me to shreds internally, kind of. And I just remember like there were moments where I was like, I think I have to quit, but it wasn't from an ego place of like, I give up, like this isn't working financially or anything. It wasn't like that. It was like, I'm just crying mercy. I'm like, uncle, please just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to handle this intensity. And the squeeze was so hard. And then on January 4th, just all of a sudden I was like, oh, I need to create a Heart Star Creator. Like I just need to like, we're just going through a whole year now of becoming conscious creators because that's what we're here to do. It was crazy the way that it was. And just literally the day before it was still like, oh God, I'm going to die. It's interesting.
No, because I had moments like that. There was a lot going on around me, just like personally, like friends, close people who were like getting super sick, almost dying. There was death around me. Like I had people who physically did die, and so December, man, that was a rough one. And I got to this place where I'm just like, so it's not like I lost faith, but I was like, why? Like you hear this, like, why did I choose this? Like this, why? Why did I choose this road? Like it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense why I would have to be witness to this pain and the suffering. And then like,
did you wonder if you had made a mistake? And like on some level, like whether you said that to yourself, was there a part of you that was like, did I choose the wrong road?
No, I felt like, and then I also was like, can't I just go back to like, can't I go back to just living like an ignorant life of just doing the thing and finding joy in the old things that I used to find joy in before I knew. Like,
plug me back into the matrix, please.
Yes, I wanted to be plugged back in. There were moments where I just wanted to be plugged back in.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, was this like a huge mistake? Am I ever going to be able to go back to simplicity? But then, like I said, I will say, like I had a night where I took a walk. It was like the middle of the night. I was like, I was emotionally like in crying and couldn't really even pinpoint like what was going on. And I asked for guidance. I asked for like spiritual guidance. And I felt really like connected at that moment. That I was like, I'm asking, like mercy, like I'm asking now, like and it takes a lot for me to get to that place. Cause like I said, I'm brave and I feel like I have a lot of courage, but I was kind of like at my knees, like, please show me the way. And literally the next morning, woke up and I was like, oh, here's the way.
It's so amazing. It's just so interesting. And there was somebody else that I was working with in one of my 6-week mentorships who had a similar experience where she told me it was also Wednesday, January 4th, that like she had been going through something so dark. And likewise, she just woke up and was like, it's gone. It's over. The existential nightmare, I guess. I mean, I don't even know. I still don't know was. I think it must have
Right.
had to do with the final, like the eclipse season in Scorpio, that it just felt like some Scorpio like fucking
It was,
down
yeah,
into
it
the
was like
bottom of the
the
barrel.
final throes of that Scorpio, like taking you under, like, let's see how much you can take.
Yes, that's totally how it really felt like, sort of like a BDSM scenario of, like, you
Yeah.
know, our higher selves or whatever being like, you're gonna take it. You're gonna see
Yeah.
shadow. And it's,
Right.
but here we are on the other side. So,
Yeah.
oh, it's a,
And mainly it's like nothing truly on an outside like 3D perspective has really changed, other than it almost was like in my brain I something rewired, like something, like there was like neurotransmitters that got connected that have never been there before, where I was like, oh, this is all possible.
yeah,
And it was a feeling too, in myself, that like I really could do anything.
yeah.
And all the like voices and fears that were there before, like, yeah, I can still kind of hear them and they still come in, and I'm just like, okay, great. And they have no like sting.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that like this is how it's going to be for the rest, who knows what's going to happen, but I will like definitely take this, and I feel like I am forever changed, like for the next like ocean I have to cross. This is a level, if I'm in a video game, this is a level that I haven't reached before.
I
And
agree.
it almost feels like maybe not just in my lifetime, but it feels to the extent of maybe like multiple lifetimes, generational. Like I've hit a level that maybe even like my other, like if I'm living parallel lives, or if I have like spiritual guidance who are like looking down on me, they're like, oh, we didn't think she'd make it this far, you
Yeah.
know?
Yes, totally. I agree. It feels like, again, without being attached to the idea that like everything's now rainbows and unicorns, it actually doesn't feel that way at all, but
No.
it feels like, oh, something consolidated and it's there forever now. And it's the same for me, like something wired and I'm like, oh, okay, I see. I get it. I get it and I see. And that doesn't mean I have all the answers. And like on a day-to-day
No.
level, I'm still trying to like I'm actively working on figuring it out. But the big picture has clicked in this certain realm
Mhm.
of like understanding ourselves as, yeah, we do create our reality. We are in charge of this video game. We are dreamers within the dream. So it's kind of
Mhm.
like, if we're dreamers within the dream, it's like we fully woke up and we're like, oh, this is a fucking dream, like fully, like,
Yeah.
whereas
Yeah.
before we were, sometimes we were there, sometimes we were like, oh, why does this keep happening, but now we're like, it's happening because I'm creating it and I can figure it out.
Georgie.
Georgie,
Sorry, that's my dog.
no
She's
worries.
getting so hyped over this. Georgie, come here.
She feels all the energy. And
Yeah.
and so now, like on a day-to-day basis, I'm figuring out what it means to be a lucid dreamer. But there just seems to
Mm,
be no
mhm.
more return to the dreaming state. It's like, no,
Yeah.
I'm here. And I also
Yeah.
I'm deeply motivated to bring everyone who is ready along with me on this journey to similarly like sculpt the dream in real time.
Yeah. No, it's so cool. And yeah, it's like, of course, nothing like from an outside perspective, nothing's really changed. I just feel like I also feel a lot more clarity. Like not that I have the answers, but I don't feel like this need to even like figure out like what the answers are to the extent I did before. Like I just feel like, oh, like I just have a lot more faith, that everything will come when it should.
Yeah.
And that what is to come, like I know February, like astrologically, February is a pretty calm month. And then I just get the sense like come March, some shit's about to like go down. But I'm just like, I hate to say this because I'm not excited for it, but I'm not scared for it. Because I'm just like, whatever happens, now that I've come to this place where like I trust myself, I came to a place in myself that that like, I'm trying to describe it. It's hard to describe. I think you understand it.
Mhm.
It's just, I guess that it would be faith, but like,
It's more of a knowing though, like faith. It feels like
yeah,
previously we were
knowing.
operating
It's
on
a
faith.
knowing.
Yeah, like faith.
Yeah, it's a
Faith.
knowing. Like it's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Like we're like, again, we externally, if stuff is going on that is chaotic and traumatic and out of control, like uh, like I know like just that I have control over my personal reality, and that knowing that gives me so much comfort.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, it totally makes sense. Exactly. Because I think when like the difference that I'm implying between faith and knowing is like you said before, conceptually before you understood that you were a creator, but it was still wobbly. And so in those wobbly moments, that's where we had to call on faith and be like, oh, I don't feel like I have the evidence that this is actually how it goes,
Yes.
but I'm choosing to believe it
Hmm.
anyway. But something solidified so that now it's like, oh, even when things appear to be uncomfortable or, what we're experiencing is not the what we consciously desired to create or whatever, we're just going through a messy part of the process. Because
Well,
the creation process doesn't mean that you just instantly get everything that you want. It means that you are yeah, sculpting the dream, and it's working
mhm,
with you. But it's kind of like, even when it's messy or uncomfortable or not feeling like what we want, there's just this knowing that that is just part of the process and it's okay. And we're just going to move through it and
mhm,
it's going to be fine. And it's going to yield things that
mhm.
are so magical that we never could have even imagined it. So it's all good. That's really what it feels like. And it also
Yeah.
doesn't feel like just being zen 100% of the time either. Like this morning I woke up with a bunch of anxiety because I had a trigger coming up. But at this point, I'm fucking excited when I get triggered. The instantaneous feeling is like "Huh, huh," whatever feeling is coming up, and then I realize,
Mhm.
ooh, oh, now I know what I need to explore in order to like continue this creation process. Like this is the thing that's coming up for me to look at. There's something important in here.
Yeah. But
Hmm.
and then when I hear you say that, like it just goes back to this kind of like courage.
Mm.
It's, and that's why like I feel like this like claiming that I am brave and courageous is knowing like, yeah, because it is going to be shitty when you face your triggers. And it's not to say that like, oh, like you said, it's not unicorns and rainbows and jumping around on clouds like Care Bears. Um, although I would love to live in that world. But um but that like when you are triggered or when there is like these really rocky waters, that like you have the it's a feeling, like the courage or the bravery to do it, and know that like there's going to be rewards from it.
Uh-huh. Big rewards.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like even like the reward of me waking up that morning and being like, that was such a gift and a reward.
Totally.
And there and I can't describe it, like I can't give that reward to somebody else, you know but I would love to be able to like encapsulate it and give it to somebody else. And that's what I love to do with people, is to work with people so they can figure out how to give that reward to themselves.
Hmm. It's almost like you're like a potion master, but the potion is like life. And you're helping people to basically like figure out the different ingredients and components and what, like how to like mix it up with movement and astrology and self-exploration and magic activation and intuition and swirl it all together so that they get that like that, the result of that potion is like, wow, that transformation.
I love that. Can I use that for
100%.
my marketing?
Yes.
Can I take that? This is what I think I do.
I know it's so hard to figure it out
Yeah,
and
no,
put
it's
it in
good.
a nutshell, isn't it? What it is that we do. It's like,
Right.
I don't know. You
Right.
just
But I think that's another thing that happened too, is I was really caught up for the past couple, within the past year, like 2022 was an amazing year. It was like a hard year, but it was me trying to figure out like how to market myself, like how to make money in my business and what I do. And I was really, kind of stuck. And I think it was, again, this like linear patriarchal programming of this is how you have a business. This is how, these are the right ways to do it. And then something happened in January too, where I was like, none of that matters. Like, it doesn't even matter. Like, I will keep doing what I'm doing and not really care that it doesn't fit any sort of model. And all that stuff that like I thought like, oh, well, I'm not doing it this way, so I'm not going to succeed. All of a sudden, it just didn't matter anymore. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay, well, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, and I know that it will work out.
Totally, totally. Oh, it's so good. So I would love to hear because you and I compared notes too privately, and we both are feeling the same energies for 2023, which I already shared my nutshell on the podcast, which is where it feels like I also feel like in March shit's gonna pop off. I don't astrologically know what that is. It's just a feeling
Mhm.
that I have. I feel like it's gonna get hot again in the summer. And there's going to be what it feels like to me is a lot of social unrest. It reminds me of
Mhm.
2020, except this time we're like,
Mhm.
oh, wait a minute. We've seen this
Mhm.
before. No, we're not
Mhm.
in doing this. But it does kind of remind me of the energy around the Black Lives Matter stuff where it's just going to trigger some
Yep.
collective
Yep.
anger and people are just going to want to like tear the shit down. But I have no
Yeah.
idea any of the astrology around it. So I would love to hear kind of what you feel and the astrology that you've observed. And yeah.
Well, you're very right. I feel like we're going back into some 2020 energy. Uranus in Taurus is, I mean, we're squaring Uranus in Taurus today. It's been a major player. Uranus in Taurus is like the disruptor, the revolutionary, and then in Taurus, it's like it's tangible. It's not like some like theory. Oh, we're gonna see it. And so that is a theme that's going to come about this year. Pluto is turning from Capricorn into Aquarius, which Aquarius being the collective consciousness, it's a huge waking up. It's a huge rebirth of humanity again. So, there's that song Age of Aquarius. This is Pluto turning into Aquarius is like, it's a big one. And so I think you're very right. Like whatever happens, whether it is like some like actual like physical catastrophe on Earth, or I don't like to do predictions of like this is what because I don't it could be really anything. It's more energetically like you talked about the Black Lives Matter. I almost foresee, and again, this is just like metaphors, but like a huge financial crisis, a huge like unveiling of some political systems. There's going to be like some shock aspect, I feel like, to something.
Mhm.
And rather than if this happened like a couple years ago where it really like took people like whoa by surprise, now people are like prepped for it, that it's just going to be like, it's going to be shocking, but there's going to be more of like, okay, and now we know what to do.
Mm.
Like, like, like if there is some major like reveal, like political corruption or economic collapse or something, rather than just be like, what are we gonna do? There's a lot more like momentum into the change that needs to happen, rather than just like a full chaotic unrest of like, we don't know what to do now. It's just that much more momentum to be like, and now this was the final thing we needed to completely revamp the systems.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
there's no, like, everyone always talks about there's no going back. This is like the solidifier. Like, yeah, there's absolutely no going back.
Yeah.
That's just the energy I'm feeling.
Almost like if the World Economic Forum decides to like make its power move and institute these 15-minute cities or something like that, like some kind of economic collapse or financial collapse that we can clearly see is orchestrated, not just like, whoops, whoa, a bad stock market day, but like we can see that it is by design, and enough people have woken up over the last 3 years and yeah, exactly, have sort of like processed all of this and made even just consciousness preparations that we're just like, nope, and we're not, and this isn't, and we have, yeah, we're not taken unawares. We're prepared to handle it from a place of power as opposed to a place of vulnerability. But also kind of feels to me like there are a bunch of people who, well, so for those of us who are already awake, to the degree that we have integrated shadow, because some of like, I think every time things like that happen, it just triggers up a bunch of collective shadow. And that's where it gets messy and we see like riots and things like that. So if we've integrated shadow, then we can sort of witness the chaos and not be brought into the frenzy and anxiety and energetically of the chaos. So we're kind of doing like important work in the background by maintaining a frequency of calm, but not a frequency of burying your head in the sand, And then I think there are a bunch of people who really haven't woken up for whatever number of reasons. So they still like very much are believing what the government is telling us and what the mainstream news is telling us. And I think something's going to happen this year that's going to make it impossible to, like they can stay asleep, but they will have to admit to themselves that they are consciously choosing that. You know what I mean? And I think about people that I know in my life who very much right now, they're still operating by the narrative but they're still telling themselves that this is just, I don't know, this crazy virus came out of nowhere and then we're just living through it and we're just dealing. I think something's going to happen that's so overt that they might still choose to believe that, but they can't deny that they are choosing that.
That's a great way, because that's what I'm getting. I also am getting the feeling that a lot more people, like you said, are going to wake up in some sort of capacity. And like you said, even if it is unconscious or subconscious, there's going to be something that like you said, like there's no way around it. But it'll be interesting to see how many people still cling, and it will be a choice, cling to old paradigms. And that's just the nature. I mean, contrast and the duality of life, like that's another thing. It's like, it's always going to be there. It's not like, I don't imagine like all of a sudden we all, like, what would be the point of human life if we all just thought the same thing,
Totally. And It's reminding me of one of the energy reports I did in my Patreon a few weeks ago. I do them weekly, but they're not necessarily restricted to the energy of the week. It's more just like, I don't know, like our various guidance fields of consciousness being like, here's what you need to integrate to prepare. But one of them was the Two of Swords, followed by the Tower, followed by the Six of Pentacles. And I remember when I was translating it, I was like, the Two of Swords is really talking about how, like, basically we have to shit or get off the pot. We have to make a decision. And you're either going left or you're going right. And though the nuance of the Two of Swords is that both directions lead to the same destination, but the journey is totally different. So it does matter which way you go.
Yeah.
At the same time, it doesn't matter which way you go, but you have to make a choice.
Yes.
Choice time now. And then the Tower followed. And then, so it's like, shit's going to pop off. And then it was the Six of Pentacles, which I took to mean like, oh, a lot of us are the choice. We've already made the choice. And it's like a way to be in this physical realm differently and steward it differently in terms of like generosity, give, take, but not just like in terms of money, but I think it comes back to that creatorship, like, because when, like, just in listening to you talk, just now, I was thinking, oh, the awakeness, even those who choose to not, who choose to not wake up, really all they're doing is being like, I want to stay plugged into the matrix, because the reality of waking up and realizing that I have so much control here, I'm just not ready for it. For whatever reason, I'm not ready for it. So I want to eat the fucking steak. That's what I want to do. I want to eat the steak.
Yeah, totally.
And it's fine. It's totally fine.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Like on a certain level, I feel like over the past 2 years, a part of me was still clinging on. I was still taking those steak nibbles.
Yeah, right.
And then, I was like, and now I'm like, okay, no more steak. I'll mourn it, I'll grieve, but I'm okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, February to me is kind of like this pit stop. Like, there was like, we were on the journey, and then before we decide like the fork in the road, which will be March, we're taking inventory and we're really kind of solidifying, like, and like getting our supplies, prepping up for the next journey in March. That's what it feels like to me. And so if it's like we're at that camp and everyone's kind of like deciding like which one are you going to take? That's what it feels like a pit stop.
I love that. I love it. I was describing it very similarly as like in November we received our new assignment. And in December it was like, okay, integrate that because it's fucking wild. And also like realizing like, oh, everything that came before this was boot camp. Oh shit. We thought it was the real deal, but it was boot camp. Now it's going to get real. And then January and February are like, okay, now that like you got to make your preparations. Exactly. Like gather your supplies, pack your bag, spend time with your loved ones, and then give them a hug. And I'm not saying like say goodbye to your loved ones. I'm just mean in the analogy of being, going off to your deployment, but just kind of like just chill out in January and February, because in March it's gonna get fiery.
Yep. Yeah. Totally. I love it. I love it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I just love talking to you. Would you share with everybody, first of all, if there's any last thing that you would like to say or talk about that we didn't already cover, and then also more about what you do and where they can find you, and
gosh, anything I want to talk about. Well, I always, sometimes like my oversharing, or one thing that came to me too, when you were talking about like when you like overshare, you have that hangover. One thing I realized is, I do actually get that sometimes. Like I notice if I'm in a group or in things, and I'm very easy and quick to get emotional. Like I'll cry, and it's not like crying out of like sadness or grief. Sometimes it's just pure emotion that comes through my body. And then I realized that, after the fact that I do that with people, like I'll have an emotional hangover from that. I'll be like, oh gosh, like was I've always talked about, am I too much for people? But that was another thing that like I'm really like coming to terms with this past month, is like, no, that's like the beautiful part of me, right?
Mm.
So I just love working with people on that sort of level where like literally too muchness, not enoughness, anything that comes up, I just embrace it and cherish it. I love it. So yeah, if anybody ever feels called to work with me or just have a conversation with me and on any sort of level, on talk about really anything, like that's one thing. I'm a pretty open book. So I just love hearing everyone's story, no matter what it is. And so in that capacity, I do movement work. I do a lot of like body work, energy work, just like moving energy through the body. And that can really be in any sort of capacity, through like a lot of physical like movement, or just breath work or meditation. I'm actually going to do a full moon meditation after I jump off this call. Um, and so I will probably post links to that on my social media pages. You can find me on Instagram, Carolina Movement, or Carolina underscore movement. You can find me on Facebook. I actually think, I could be wrong, but intuitively, I pretty much know. I think I'm the only Cara Busacker on this thing we call Earth. My last name's pretty obscure. And I think I've never found, so if you look me up, you're bound to find me. I don't think there's any other Cara Busackers that I know of out there. So if you Google me, I have my website, Carolina Movement. I'm on Facebook. Yeah, come reach out to me. Anything, anytime. I'm here for it all.
Amazing. And so all those links will be in the show notes for your ease, beautiful listeners. So you can just go down and click them. But I'll also say, like, I really feel like you and Cara are meant for each other. If you basically have things that you have never fully shared with anyone, that are ready to be seen, like parts of yourself, either shame parts or your magic, the like if you have like a witch wound or a wizard wound, or things that you think that you've done in your past that are so unforgivable that you can't possibly deserve your magic or anything good, like just those things that really, that your next growth comes from being witnessed, and also through that witnessing moving into it, then I feel like Cara is the person to work with. And I also, if you don't know what like movement really means, because I'm just coming into this right now. Also, one of the things that's happening for me this year is like deeply inhabiting my body on a level that I have not previously. And I'm appreciating the necessity of like somatic practices of some kind, like you said, to move energy through the body. So like as we're doing, because I'm mostly one of those like meditating kind of people, or contemplating kind of people. I'm very up in the ethers. And so I know that when we're doing that and we're working all in that kind of etherical realm, or like through dreams or psychic activation, if we don't, or shadow work, if those things become unlocked just in the psyche, but we don't process it and bring it down into the body and move it out through the body, it's like it's almost like an orgasm that you never really get there. Like it doesn't actually
Totally.
fully land. And so I think that
Yeah.
movement practice is really a powerful thing to go into right now. But either way, Cara will activate the shit out of your magic, is what I want you to know.
Oh, thank you so much, Amy. I love how it's nice to have somebody like kind of describe what you do. It makes sense to me because like it's just there's so much that I want to share with people and explain what I do, and it's really hard to describe it. But yeah, I can read your birth chart. I love to work with people, and I like to work with people on any sort of level that feels comfortable to them, like tapping into like that's why I have a hard time describing my movement, because yes, I am a trained like Pilates and yoga instructor and we can go to those levels, but movement to me is so much more than just like doing poses and exercising. It's much more somatic work of just really being in your body and feeling energy, how it does move through your body. Because like you were saying, like we can think about things and we can feel things, but to connect it to our physical form is huge. And then to have practices to learn how to move energy and to embrace energy when you want it has been so helpful and beneficial for me and people that I work with.
hmm And like when we're doing those kind of like more like cerebral or psychic ways of processing things, what I found for myself anyway is that it's sneaky and it goes down and hides in your body somewhere. And if you don't like, that's why if you
Hmm.
don't follow it there and like move it through, then it just creates, like for me, for example, a lot of it gets hidden in the muscles in my hips and like around my hips and my glutes and my lower back. And so I
Hmm.
start like carrying a lot of tension there and it doesn't translate into pain. So I don't notice it, but it's a stiffness. And then when I actually like
Hmm.
do some kind of movement practice to connect with it, I feel like finally the big release where like if I need to cry, it'll come out. It was hiding in my hip and it just needed to be
Yeah.
moved out and then I'll cry. And that's what I mean, like getting
Yeah.
the actual orgasm where the release happens and then the
Right.
integration happens and you're like, oh God, that's done. Finally, it's not in my field anymore.
Yeah, no, that's totally, again, you explained it very, I love that explanation of it. And it's also like energy, it just needs to be witnessed. And
Totally.
so energy does hide in these like places in our body and we forget it's there. And then things, either you will feel physical pain or, once you are able to like tap into, like a lot of times I just do body scans with people and it's just kind of a process of like really being in your body. And then all of a sudden I said, what part of your body like is saying, hey, me, remember me over here? It's like just being able to witness that, but we are so like tapped, we're so off from like actually just like being in our body and like sitting there and just feeling the sensations of like, oh, there is something there, like let me feel into this, so I could go on and on all about that, but just yeah, if you're interested, like reach out to me.
Yeah, totally. And then the last question is, do you work with women only or do you work with men too? Who knows that they can reach out to you?
Yeah, anybody.
Everybody.
Anybody.
Amazing.
Yep.
So
Anybody, everyone. Yeah.
men,
Young,
women,
old, kids, babies, them, theys.
beautiful,
I love it all.
amazing. Oh, she's so magical. Thank you so much, Cara, for being here and sharing your energy and your insights and your journey. I just feel like this conversation was the best. It was everything I was hoping for. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Amy. It's so much pleasure, so much joy you bring me.
And thank you, beautiful listeners. Love you so very much. Hey, my beautiful friend. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Third Eye Awakening. If you like what you heard and you want to go deeper, then head over to my website, amybelair.com, and check out my store, which is full of my past programs, courses, modules, masterclasses, light codes, etc., that are powerful and they are potent and they pack a punch. Not gonna lie, they are here to support you, accelerate you, and activate you in your spiritual awakening and psychic development journey. And/or If you want to stay in my most current, vibey, live energy, then I suggest that you head over to the Patreon and join me there. At the lowest tier level, which is only $5 a month, you get a secret bonus episode for every Third Eye Awakening episode that goes out. You also get a weekly energy report and light language activation, and you get a new moon and full moon emancipation transmission. So, those are some fun ways to play, and I'll just remind you that I always have live programs going, so keep your eyes on my website, on my social media, and here on the podcast to find out what is the most current offering that I have. Either way, I love having you in my world, and I hope that I get to meet you and work with you soon.